your chance to get to meet me. I get to see lots of new faces, also lots of returning faces as well. So we get a bit of early engagement before we really get into the actual season itself. The season doesn't start until the end of July. We are about to finish the current season, which gives us a 5-week break before we return for the 22-23 season. So what we're going to be covering tonight is a little bit about our club structure and philosophy, which will include our pedagogy, so the way of learning which we implement in Fremont, our curriculum design, our development pathway, and then we'll hit the logistics towards the end. Everything we do is based on theory, research theory through scientific research. We don't just come up with the latest fad and go with the wind on it. We do pay attention to what is actually going on, which supports the reason and to why we do certain things. Just to go over a few of the quick rules of the session. Everyone is on mute to begin with. When we come to questions towards the end, we'll be able to take everyone off that. Again, have a pen and paper ready. So you can write down any questions and join in with some of the tasks we'll do as we go through. Please use the chat function for any kind of feedback as we go through certain things. I will take a look, see if anyone's added to it, but please try and hold off asking any questions in there until the very end so we don't miss them. And the presentation is being recorded and it will be added to our website so everyone will have access to it also at the very end. Okay, as you can see, I am jumping in and adding more people.
Got it.
Hey guys, if you can just make sure you are on mute if you take that off, would be great. Thank you, Nirav. Perfect. Okay, so quick welcome and introduce you to who I am. So some of you know who I am, some of you are brand new, have no idea. So my name is Dyer Redwood. I'm the executive and sporting director of Fremont Youth Soccer Club. A little bit of background into me. I currently hold the UEFA B Senior and Youth License, an NSCAA, or now known as the United Soccer Coaches Organization, with a Premier Diploma and Director of Coaching Diploma. I'm coming towards the end on my final assignment right now for my Master's in Advanced Performance Football Coaching. That is through the Football Association of Wales and the University of South Wales. Some of you may have heard just the past few days, Wales did qualify for the World Cup, first time since '58. So incredibly excited about that. And I've also been lucky enough to visit multiple elite academies, mostly in Germany and in the Netherlands, but also this summer we'll be heading down to Argentina to visit a few of those academies as well. So again, apologize if I look distracted, I'm still entering people in. So first thing we're going to do tonight is just take a quick look at the tree that is on your screen. If you've done this before, no cheating, grab yourself a pen and paper. And now what I want you to do, now you've taken a chance to take a look at this tree, I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to draw a tree yourself. Okay? So I'm just going to put my timer on, 30 seconds, doesn't need to be a work of art. Okay, your turn to draw yourself a tree, off you go. For those who've done this before, just try and maybe empty your mind of any of today's stresses so you can really focus on the information. There's some new stuff in here from previous sessions, which I hope will be a benefit to everyone. Okay, 10 more seconds.
I'm sorry, could you repeat what you asked?
Yeah, just take a quick look at the tree and now with your own pen and paper, draw yourself your own tree. So pretty much just draw yourself a tree. So I give you just a little bit longer. Okay, so the reason why we're doing this, and be honest with, you don't have to come out and tell me and shout at me, you can put it in the chat function if you'd like. What does your tree look like? Does it look the same? Or did anyone remember to add the roots? Quite often we look at something without taking into consideration the foundation of what we see, the roots, what created what we see. Namely, in this instance, to put into context, we look at different children playing and we do have a bad habit of trying to compare each child against another one. Whereas what we don't appreciate or really recognize is what is the background to the child. Every child is completely unique, even if they do wear the same uniform on the field and play the same sport. So everyone's experiences is going to set them up in a different way. So we're easily persuaded by what we see in front of us. We often don't consider the roots, foundations of the players we see, and we're very quick to compare. Access to core tree. Perfect. If your tree is very good, please feel free to share it with us. So moving on, if you consider the snowflake, snowflakes are made up of many different molecules, but it's very unlikely that any two snowflakes are the exact same. So what we find is, and it's similar to what that first task was about, is each snowflake is going to be exposed to slightly different conditions. So even if you started with two identical crystals, they wouldn't be the same. It's the same with every single player which you see. It's the same with twins. Over time, through different interactions with different people, different friendship groups, different interactions with different peers in different sports, they're going to be different, even if they are biologically the same. So the first main point we really want to take from today, or we hope to take from today, is the whole objective of youth sports, so no matter what the sport is, no matter what the context, recreation or competitive, is not to compare kids to each other. It should be the same in school. We shouldn't be comparing kids from one to the other. We all learn at different rates. We all have different skills in different areas, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So to compare to each other is just going to instill a sense of anxiety, fear, and it is going to end up really preventing that child from developing in certain areas. So a little bit about the club to begin with. You can find our mission statement online. It's all under the link shared with you on this slide right now, the mission statement and philosophy page. And it kind of covers what it is we're about. So we aim to provide a positive and nurturing environment for soccer players at all levels to develop their soccer ability and human element. What you may have noticed throughout these evaluations is we don't turn any player away. I know there's programs which will have your child show up, they'll scribble down their notes and tell you, no, you can't play. I think that's wrong. Considering the word we just used more than anything else, they was play. These kids, ultimately, they just want to play. So who are we to prevent any child from having an opportunity for playing? Who are we also to judge the ability of a child so young? Science has shown us and all the research shows us we shouldn't be doing that anyway. And more importantly as well, we don't want any player to miss out due to the socioeconomic situation. So we have a financial aid program to help support those players from low-income families. And also we don't want the social side of it either. We want to be inclusive to everyone, no matter where you're from. Our vision then is that through innovative pedagogical methods, players will be addressed as the individual element. All these elements are made up of complex systems, and this is to advance not only the soccer playing ability, but also the development as a human being. Quite often we consider the X's and O's, the tactics, the technical side of it. We don't put enough into the psychological impact that we have on players. And by that, I mean the behaviors, the emotions of us as coaches, as parents, and ultimately all the adults that are involved in the game. And also we have to consider the physical side of it. We push kids too soon, too early. We try to turn them into pros at very young ages. The reality is we have no idea which direction these players are going to go into until they've gone past those puberty years. And so maturation takes a big part of that as well. But again, we're too quick to judge players, and that's not what we're about. We want to be everyone's inclusive and take in that human element at the same time. Okay, again, on the same page, you'll be able to look at our core values. We'll go into this a little bit further when we look at curriculum design, but these core values are what we want to see from every single member of the club, not just the players, but from coaches, parents. It's basically what gives us our identity, our core values. Like I mentioned, we want everyone to be involved in the program. We don't want anyone to be excluded. So we have to have a sense of community and inclusivity, and also be understanding of everyone's situation at the same time. Again, we're not all the same. We're going to have different backgrounds. We want to express creativity and innovation through empowering the players. Can they be the decision makers? Can we make it more athlete-centered, not be dominant by the egos of coaches, parents, or again, any adult that is involved in the process of youth sports. And it must be fun. We also want to see people committed, but at a healthy level. So not having to travel all over the state, all over the country to go play a game of soccer, which is only 30 to 40 minutes long. That's just insanity. We want everyone to be committed to be part of the process. And then our behaviors. It's important that our behaviors are appropriate for the youth soccer environment, not the adult environment, which is difficult for us as the adults to sometimes separate ourselves. What we want to see from players is how do they present themselves, not just in how they look, obviously, but how they present themselves in the way the facilities. Do they clean up after themselves? Do they look after equipment? Do they look after their own ball, their own shin pads, their own bag, and not have mum and dad always pack it for them or pick it up for them? How they present themselves and how they talk to each other, how they talk to coaches, how they talk to the parents. We do recognize that in the field as well, and also their actions. So how do they behave as far as their actions in treating other people, but also the effort they put into their practice? I don't believe it should be work. I think it's the worst word we can use is it should be hard work and players should work hard. They've come to play, but can they really present themselves in a positive way of being involved in the process of giving 100% effort to everything that they do? And as we go through the older age groups, then we look at these different behaviors we expect, the behavior to compete. So going from that participant level into competing, and then in the older ages then also giving back to the community to what they can do with the kids and also in the wider community of Fremont. Some of you may have noticed already through the different pictures, we have actually sponsored the food bank, the Tri-City Volunteers. So we don't charge for space in our jerseys, which is a normal sponsorship. We actually donate to the Tri-City Volunteers so we can be honored to have their badge on our uniforms. And we also do food drives then throughout the year. Okay, so our club structure, this is what we're trying to do, and this is what we're trying to achieve between our grassroots and competitive program. Some of you may be moving over from grassroots. Grassroots is those recreational programs where we want to give opportunity for kids to sample different sports at younger ages. From 8 to 12 years old, they really should be sampling different sports. If you specialize too young and only play soccer, you're limiting your child's abilities, not only just in their movements, but also cognitively, being able to see different situations on the field and different problem-solving capacities which they could develop into. So throughout the grassroots, we keep it recreational, high fun, highly deliberate play. So it's very much everything is about scrimmaging. And through that, what you'll find is players, through having that positive environment, will continue to participate in activities beyond their adult years or into their adult years even. Whereas the competitive program, what we look for again is those early sampling years, different sports. Here's a different structure. It is year round, it's 44 weeks. But what we do within our program is we have multiple sports on a Thursday. So those of you who are tuning would have already noticed those younger kids from U9 to U12 will be playing touch rugby one week, field hockey another week, handball a different week, and soccer in week 4. Then through U13 to U16, those are your investment years. That's when you really start to put more focus on one or fewer sports. So if you've been playing 4 or 5 sports, which I think is perfect, you then start to lower it down to maybe 1 or 2 sports. You start to apply your focus in one area. We get more deliberate play. So a lot of our sessions will be based around play all the time. Everything we do is in context of the game, but with different conditions, different principles of play. And through the science behind this, you can see at the bottom, Coat and Wall provide this information through their scientific research. You can still achieve elite performance. So for those of you who have been sold the dream of having a child participate at 4 years old and they're going to become the ultimate athlete, more often than not, they actually burn out by the age of 12. Soccer is actually starting to see the age drop to 9 because these early specific years of trying to train them like professional athletes. And it's the kind of the culture in which we're trying to fight. And again, we'll touch on that a little bit later as well. As you can see, the elite performance pathway, some sports, you do need to participate at a more specialized level at younger ages. Think of your individual sports, your gymnastics, for example, your ballet. It's those very fine detailed sports, very individual, where you're not involved in such a dynamic environment. As you can see from just watching the game of soccer, you have two teams on the field. So the way you play is determined by those interactions between those two teams. You then have your teammates, so interactions between teammates, then also yourself. Different functions and elements from within yourself have to work together in unison to achieve elite performance. But that comes at the older age groups. When you look at the gymnast, for example, it's very much a static environment, such as the floor space isn't going to change. The horse you do your vaulting over isn't going to change. It's a very static environment. So you're working on those fine skills from a very young age. So it benefits. But as you will probably also recognize, a lot of those athletes are burnt out by the early 20s. Their peak performance is around 15, 16 years old. It's not very good for participation in sports beyond those teenage years. So a little bit about our program specifically. So we break it up into different phases of development and how we can affect the different individual playing elements. And throughout this presentation, we're going to focus on each different phase. So first, when we look at our foundation phase, that's the training pool. So this year's the 2016s and 15s, our U9s and 10s, so the 2014s and 13s, our 11s and 12s, which are 2012 and 2011 birth years. So in the training pool, heavily based around free play. We have a double age group, so the 7s and 8s follow the same curriculum, but we assign them based on their birth months. So we have the older players in one group, then the next group is going to be the next oldest, and so on, down until, you get to youngest players. 9s and 10s, we then enter what we could consider the competitive program. It's the worst name possible. It should be the club program. But again, through the language, to keep it consistent with the rest of the United States, if we called it the club program, you'd find people would not find us, will not be part of our program. So unfortunately, we do have to stick with the language. What this means is you'll now be participating in weekend games. Again, you can have a big debate over whether those have any benefit at this younger age. From research, no, they're not. But players will be assigned a team still based on their birth months. What you'll notice is when you purchase your uniform, the number on your back will be assigned based on when you're born in the year. The reason for this is to help you with what we spoke about earlier. It's trying to prevent you from comparing against other players. So when you look onto the field, if your child is wearing 99, it's a good chance that the youngest player in the program and the youngest player on the field at that time. If you're comparing them to another child, they could be 12 months older. That is a lot of development, 12 months. If you consider as you go through the younger ages, 12 months to a child is completely different to 12 months to an adult. For us, 12 months goes flying by. It's almost like it didn't happen. For a child at 8 years old, that's a very short period of time which they've been alive. So for them, 12 months is a lot in their development. As we hit U11 and U12, we then look to start evaluating the players against our development pathway and put them into groups of similar rates of development. Again, this is too young. The research shows us this is too young, but I always keep coming back to, we also have to be aware of the environment in which we're operating in, the culture. From U9, well, U8, most clubs will evaluate and put players based on what they feel are high-level players. What that does is you're looking at pretty much the biological side of a player, what they're born with. These players aren't elite. None of your children are an elite player. It's important that we're very honest and transparent with that from the beginning. Your children are not elite players, even if you think they're exceptionally good. The reality is they're either physically more developed than another player based on the genes. They may have a bit more sports experience, who have played a little bit more often, but they're not going to be an elite player. If anyone tells you your child's elite or at a high level before they've gone through puberty, those maturation years, quite honestly, they're lying to you. They could say that you're an advanced level of development at this time, but no one can tell you you're elite because we do not know how you're going to develop beyond those puberty years. We'll come into statistics pretty soon on why that is the case. So U13 to 15, again, you have your weekend games. For our ID1 teams, they will then be entered into the State Cup. For the U14s and older, other teams in the age group, we will enter one of our own hosted tournaments. Again, you'll find a lot of stuff we do is based on the the context and culture in the US. We are a development program, both short and long-term development. As soon as you put players into these environments of State Cup competitions and tournaments, you immediately become outcome-based. When you start to focus on an outcome, you're taking away your focus from being a more child-orientated, developed-orientated environment where it's all about the process. There is so much research to back this up, and I'll share this with you throughout the season. It is incredibly frustrating for me to see the US is not making change, even to the level of NorCal, why we continue to post scorelines, why we continue to post leagues. It is at the biggest detriment to the players possible. I don't want to shoot myself in the foot because Wales will be playing the US in the World Cup, and I know exactly who I'll be cheering on in that one. But for a country the size of the US to be nowhere near considered a threat, even in the group stages of a World Cup, is pretty poor. And why we're not changing this to make a difference with the massive amounts of players you have playing, even compared to the general population of every other country, it would scream to me that there is a problem in what we're doing and we're not changing it. So I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm just trying to put it into context. The reason why we do what we do, because it is based on what we do know through scientific research to put the best theory into practice for your child. A U17 to U19, again, State Cup for the senior teams. We also enter them into a college showcase. We do know some players have ambition of playing at college. The reason we enter the college showcase is because it adds a little bit of travel, not because we think kids should be traveling excessive distance for games. I think everything should be within a 10 to 20 mile radius with a number of clubs and teams in the area. But what this does is we find a lot of players will be going to college having never even left Fremont, apart from for a football game. They've never traveled outside of their home city. They've never traveled outside of Northern California. Well, we're about to send these kids to college to live on their own. That is a massive jump. So one of the reasons we do this college showcase is we are going to put a little bit of empowerment into them to make their own decisions, the best decisions when they're away from their parents. Can they get up on time for breakfast? Do they meet for lunch at the right time? Are they able to put the right clothes on in the morning, be prepared and pack their own bag? This might sound crazy, but a lot of the kids can't do that. Through our experiences with these showcases already for the past 2 we've been doing, players will not pack what they need in the bag. They will leave stuff at the hotel. They'll be running away from the bus to go get the stuff. They miss breakfast, so don't end up eating in the morning because they didn't set an alarm. These are important skills that kids should really have before 18 years old. So that's one of the reasons why we do this trip. And this is for our senior teams only. You will find there'll be multiple teams in the age groups. Again, we try our best to select every single player to play, but we are going to be limited based on roster sizes. So we do have training pool programs available. And as you can see below, those programs are to try and support not only the players that want to play and we don't have the roster size, but also to help them with their development. When we are aligned to such a development pathway, players do need to develop in certain areas to be able to move on into the program. So our training pool helps support them through a lot of ball mastery to be able to use both feet instead of start to develop the ability to work with both feet as well. Next thing, team names. What does it mean? It's a little bit confusing. Why is it done the way it's doing it? So FN basically means just fundamental. We're working with the fundamentals of players at this age. We're working on the ball mastery. A lot of people consider fundamentals to be kickoffs and throw-ins and goal kicks. Those aren't the fundamentals of player development. They might be the fundamentals of the game itself, the rules of the game, but we're concerned more with the fundamentals of the individual's ability to play soccer and to be able to develop at an age-specific rate. So through the stage of learning, this is when players are assigned by birth month attempts to address relative age effect. That is, big kids not being selected ahead of smaller kids. Again, ideally, this would continue to U12s, so there wouldn't be any bias towards perceived level of player. So you'll notice if your team is FM, that means you've been assigned based on your birth month. ID is identification, where you've showed development within the key elements of our game model. And SC is selection. We've selected your player to be part of the program, and we have a team available for them. And they might not quite be shown as many development key performance indicators in alignment with our game model. So it's up to it's on us then to continue to develop them within the selection teams to get those opportunities to continue to develop. It's important we don't see as one is better than the other. In the past, this has unfortunately been seen because of the naming of teams. They used to be called Elite, Premier, and Blue. We then gave another team a color name. What you then have is players start to actually compete against each other for status, which again isn't aligned with best practice for player development. Parents start to be more concerned with the name of the team rather than the rate of development of the player. And again, no player is elite at these younger ages. So to make it more developmentally friendly, to help support you as the parent in identifying what's important through the development, these are why we give them names. So it's important that no one sees player movement as promotions or relegations or going up because you're elite or going down because you're bad. It's not. Players are moved between these different teams based on rate of development to put them into an environment which is going to best support their growth. Okay, couldn't put it any better than what Johan Cruyff did. Teams don't learn, individuals within the team learn. Development is a personal process, even when conducted in a team environment. The reason why I don't think games are helpful in those U9 to U12 environments is because we become too focused on the results of the games. In some cases, you'll see coaches overcompensate for that. They lose focus on the need to try and encourage players to show that presentation behavior in not effort, but being proud of the effort they put into a game itself, because they're not focused on the scoreline. And so it gets incredibly messy. So what we're trying to aim for parents to be able to do is really focus on your individual child. So as you can see, the team placement is not best, better, or bad. The individual is our focus, not the team. Success in youth soccer is not defined by winning. It's not defined by elite trophies or leagues that you play in. Some of you may be aware that there's more and more leagues now coming around, which doesn't help because the NorCal have to adjust their model, which increases the insanity of promotion relegation and different name brackets. It is all just fluff. It is all nonsense, and it completely takes away from the player environment. We are working against a culture that does not represent the interests of the youth player, but is adult-driven, ego-orientated. It is also highly driven by money, but what isn't in the US? So a good example of this is from a post which I recently seen. I blanked out the name of the club and also the different handlers at the bottom. This is for 2011 girls. So these last year would have been U11 girls. So congratulations to our pre-ECNL too. So ECNL is the elite girls competition. How can you be pre-elite something if we don't really know where your child is going to be going, because we can't base the rate of development from such a young age? But what this does is it tells you that your child is going to be elite. It works on the emotions of the parents. If your child isn't in an elite program, again, they're not actually, but named elite, then I'm not doing what's right for my child. That's the kind of psychology that's working against you and what clubs are trying to do. Not only are they told that they are going to be elite, they play in the bronze bracket, which is supposed to be considered the lowest level bracket. So they kind of want it two ways in this one. There's no mention about the rate of development straight away. These girls won 9 of their games, didn't lose any. Very little exposure there to any kind of challenge. So I don't see how players can develop with little challenge within that environment. They scored 45 goals in 9 games. Again, that's ridiculous. You're looking at 5 goals a game. So very little challenge. I don't see what they're learning in that. And they only considered 5 goals against at the same time. But well done. There is not one part of this which shows true development, but what you'll find on different teams and clubs' websites and social media is heavily based around what their win records are, what the competitions are they entered. And this is where I do feel for parents. As program leaders, we need to do better. That is myself, as other directors of coaching in different programs, we need to do better because we don't make the life of parents any easier. It's not just soccer, unfortunately, you see it throughout youth sports. And again, I'm not trying to be a bit of a downer with this. I just feel we have to be transparent. Unfortunately, we are seeing a downward spiral in youth sports because of the money that's involved and because of the insanity of trying to professionalize kids from such a young age. Okay, enough of me talking, so we're going to get you guys thinking. So what I'm going to do now is put up a little poll for you guys to be involved. Again, for those of you who've been in this before, you may know the answers. So quick 3 questions. How many youths play organized sports? What is the annual dropout rate between 10 and 19 years old? And what's the percentage of players that have ambitions of playing college? So let me just put this poll up for you. And most importantly, at the very bottom, the one which I'm going to judge everyone on, who was the greatest ever soccer player? Okay, here we go. Here's the poll. So everyone should now be able to see the poll. I'm just going to give you about 1 minute. No Googling for the answers either, because no one's going to get a certificate or a participation medal for being part of this. So just 1 minute. Okay, start to see people responding. Perfect. We've got 60 people active in this. So let's see if we can get all 60 to respond. Although I'm pretty sure 10% would have fallen asleep, so maybe 54 would be a good number to achieve. Okay, what are we seeing? Oh, question 4 is not looking too good. Hey, thank you, whoever that was. Okay, we got 40 people so far. Brilliant. Can we squeeze out another 10? Or even everyone would be good. I'll give you another 20 seconds because we seem to be doing very well right now. You'll soon find out the answer to that one. Okay. Here we go, 48 people, not bad. That's 2 more than what I thought we might get. Okay, share the results. So I'm just going to show the results with everyone. So this is what we got. All right. Is this going to allow me to continue the presentation? Yeah, well, so hopefully you can still see it. Here we go. So here are the answers. I will if he wins the World Cup. If he wins the World Cup for us this December, you will not see me ever again. I'll be on a party for the rest of my life. Okay, let's get those. Hopefully you can see the results. So I'm just going to quickly go through the results that we did see. So first of all, most people, 31% of you believe it's 10 to 20 million. So the actual answer is close to 45 million youths between the ages of 6 and 18 participate in some form of organized sports. That is a massive number. That is huge. So a couple of us were onto that one. Well, 6 of us, 13% got the answer right now. So second one, what is the annual dropout rate between 10 and 19 years old? So it's a just short of 24% annual dropout rate consistently between 10 to 19 years old. So let's have a look. To say excellent is pretty unfortunate. It's not excellent. It's pretty damning, but we've got 21% got that one right. And if we look at those who went above that, we actually have 67% believed it to even be that number or higher. So what that number means though, it's not 25% have dropped out between 10 to 19 years old. It's 24% are dropping out every single year from 10 to 11 is 24%. a further 24 from 11 to 12. That is dreadful. And I'd hate to see what that number is now, because that was a study done 3 years ago. We are seeing a massive dropout rate. That means we're seeing fewer teams for kids to be able to participate on at older age groups. It means fewer kids are actually participating in sports into their adulthood. There's a lot of different health issues that come with that. Mental health, physical health, social health. We're doing so much wrong in youth sport. And I mean that as the adults, all of us. So whenever I talk about that, I'm not having to go at parents at all. I think the biggest problem is with me, sports leaders. We're the ones that are the problem, because we're the ones who set up these programs. So what percentage of players have ambitions of playing college? So the reason I put this one up is to see if you guys know what it is, or the reason why your children want to play. What we actually found when I did this little poll with the senior team when I was coaching them, none of them actually had ambitions of playing college. They did. We have, I think it's 5 players starting for Lonely from that one team. Very few actually do want to play college. They actually find it's fun, it's enjoying to play in the younger age groups. College years, they tend to start to focus more on their education, which obviously is incredibly important. So that is only 37% of children have ambitions of becoming a college athlete. Only 5.6% of males and 7.2% of females actually go on to college soccer from high school. So that's just from the high school into college. It's only 2% of those go on to play professionally. Those are incredibly low numbers. And the numbers when it comes to academies is even younger again. So a disturbing cycle in youth sports with increased competition and pressure at younger ages and lower levels of play becoming more prevalent as the perceived need to specialize and compete year-round to keep up with peers becomes more common at younger age groups. And then young people play sport to have fun with their friends. If they stop having fun, they stop playing sport. Focusing too early on just one sport, putting winning before skill development, and making young people train like professionals, these are the problems, not the solutions. That comes from New Zealand sport. From those of you familiar with New Zealand, cricket is actually the #1 sport, believe it or not. The rugby union is a close third after rugby league, but they are by far the most successful team sport in the world, and that goes across all sports. They are the most winningest team in all sports, and they are absolutely phenomenal. And they structure the programs around these problems to make sure they're doing what's best for the children. Okay, moving on. So a little bit about pedagogy and the reasons behind what we do is, so what is learning? Learning refers to a more or less permanent change in behavior which occurs as a result of practice. So within sport pedagogy, what we're looking for is the foundation of effective teaching and coaching in physical education and youth sport. So for this to be effective, we need to look at the coaches. Just recently, they've gone through further coach education internally. They have a 5-week project this summer on their behavior and emotions to help support their development. And they're all active in coach education outside of the club at the same time. They must be constant learners. We look at the players. Do we do our best for the players? Within that, the task, and so the tasks we provide offer different conditions and challenges, so we keep it different for players to be able to learn in. And what is the culture and the interactions within the players between themselves, the players and coaches and parents? Is it inclusive? And again, that comes back to our values. Our learning theory, the one we really believe in, isn't behaviorist, where you basically copy behaviors and you become a robot. It's a constructivist learning theory. We apply scaffolding, that is, high levels of support when you begin, and we take those levels of support away as you get older. This empowers players, it makes them the decision makers, and we try to step in when possible to provide that extra support when needed. So players do need to graze the knee, to use a term, so have that failure. You do learn from your failures. You can also learn from your successes. If you only focus on failure, then you're a very negative mindset to begin with, always trying to correct the problem. I think what we need to do better as coaches is find actually the strengths, find the positives, and just reinforce the positives. Provide feedback if there is a mistake by all means, but as soon as we see the correction, go in heavy on the positive reinforcement of those corrections and the adjustment and changes in those behaviors. So an emphasis on how individuals occur and develop their knowledge and understanding through their reflective participation in authentic situations and interactions with others. That's basically the foundation of the constructivist theory. So learning from previous experiences and taking what you've learned, taking it to the next level to apply it, use it, assimilate it into a situation, see how effective it is, go back, change it, find the solution to what the problem was, and continue to build on it. So we're always looking to build from those previous experiences. That image at the bottom, I'm not going to ask anyone to add into the chat, but by all means you can. What is your interpretation of what you see? It's a stone wall. I believe this is in Philadelphia. Some of you may know the actual name of what this statue is, but how do you interpret this? Just around what we just covered in constructivist theory, how do you believe it should be interpreted? By all means, share your views in the chat with us, or just have your own kind of thoughts on it at the same time. Excellent, yeah, evolution. But evolution we don't want everyone to be the same. So as you can see at the very first image, it doesn't have any kind of expression. But what you do over time through different experiences, can you become your own individual to really express yourself? So you see that final statue really coming out of what was a previous mold and can you express yourself in your own way? And Shrikant, unfortunately, one person did vote for Bale, sadly, but the correct answer from that would have been Bale. I forgot to add that fourth question in. Okay, so this informs our curriculum design, foundation, development, and performance phase. They all have their own different curriculums, even the training pool before that as well. So the foundation curriculum is even split into two at the same time. Within the foundation phase, we heavily focus on individual development. So every first session is an IDP. Hey, Miguel, do you mind just putting yourself on mute? Just getting a little bit of feedback, that's all. So the IDP is focusing on the individual development of the player. So passing, shooting, individual defending, the 1v1 confrontation. Also focused on small type games. Hey Miguel, unfortunately I'm unable to mute you. As for Miguel self, let's see if I can mute you myself. Where is he? Thank you, Miguel. That's perfect. Thank you very much. Small study games you'll find is the second session of the week where we apply what we learned on the Monday, put it into a small study game situation, which will be, for example, 4 different ways of scoring. So can you take the pass, 5-yard pass, and adapt that to being able to maybe open your hips and play that 5-yard pass now over 10 yards. So what do you learn from that? Maybe you got a bit more power into the technique, and maybe you can't use the instep, you've got to use your laces. So again, this is learning through experience. And then on the Thursdays, multi-sport, which we covered earlier, is your different sports. The reason we do that, easiest example is going to be with handball, where the ball can't go above the head. If a player has possession of the ball, in soccer, you have to give support and angles to be able to receive the pass. If you rely too much on being behind the defender for the ball to go over the head, you're never going to be able to understand or learn the amount of pressure, so the angle, the distance of pressure being applied to the ball, in which you have to react to that to change your angle. So rather at such a young age, trying to tell them this is what you do, we apply it into a game situation where they can explore and they can be the decision makers within the game, from recognizing, okay, I'm not receiving the pass, what is it that I need to do? Or maybe I need to change my positioning. And what we do as coaches, give them a little bit of guided instruction with them at the end to try and help them find that solution to the problem they're facing. Development phase, again, IDP on the first day of the session. Again, that's going to be your individual work, so your techniques. Second session is scenario-based. Again, it's done within small-sided games, which can be either utilized through multi-directional games, problem-based learning games, or rondos. And what you do in those activities is you apply it to a specific situation from our curriculum and our principles. So an example there would be switching the point of attack. And through that, you'd create a small study game in which players have to get the ball from one side of the field to the other, and where your field is going to be a different size to normal, so you can achieve those different goals. And then for those older kids in the development phase, they'll do more deliberate play. So they'll still focus on soccer now within the Thursday sessions, but we'll have different constraints to bring about a topic. So if we are working on passing in that 4-week training block, one of the constraints on that Thursday may be you have to make a minimum of 5 passes before you can get into the attacking half. Or you've got a team collective touch of 10 touches before you can score. We try not to constrain the individual in touches, because if you put an individual on 2 touch, you're taking away the decision from what they see on the field, and instead the decision is based on what the rule of the game is. So it's not really true to what the game situation is going to be. Then in the performance phase, so that is our U19s, then we really go in heavy on the principles and everything comes together. So even though it's been outlined here in the performance phase, even through development phases and foundation phases, the psychological conditioning, the physiological conditioning, it's still done within age-specific age groups. It's still done on what can be better developed within those different age groups, because you're not going to work on strength activities with the younger age group if they haven't yet gone through the maturation. The endurance can only be partially developed in the younger ages. They're working heavily with what they already have through genes. The one thing you can work on, though, is the speed. Speed has been proven to be developed through younger ages. So what we do is when we structure our different sessions, we do have an element of speed-based training in those. This is done in 6-week training blocks, and they'll be around our game principle. And what we do is this main principle, which is the second session of the week, that is in a larger kind of field where we do a bit more tactical kind of work. And then you have your sub principles on day 1. You then have your sub principles on day 1, main principle day 2, sub principle day 3. And also you'll find the physical loading is also done. So your strength power is done on day 2. This doesn't affect then the conditioning adaptations as you go through endurance, because you use different energy sources, different muscles. So you have a lengthening rather than shortening. And then speed again is also not supposed to speed physically, but your speed of thought, speed of action. We'll go into those a little bit more as well at different times of the year, so we don't want to give you too much information on this. We just want to set a bit of a tone. So why do we do this? Well, combining personal engagement in sport and early sports sampling promotes a rewarding youth experience and long-term sport success. We've got to look not just short-term in the development pathway, but also the long-term in how we can support these kids going into their adult years and still want to participate in sport. A statistic here to really affect what we do: a significance of play in world-class German soccer players found that only 14% were involved in drills in the younger age groups. Okay, actually only 14% actually went to older age groups as well. It was mostly done around play, very little drill or conditioning. There's nothing worse than seeing kids running around the field or doing any kind of running without the ball. A warm-up is a little bit different. We've got to get our mobility work in, but conditioning work in the youth ages without a ball, it's just pointless. It doesn't add any context to the game. We also then found that 86% were involved in coach-led play. This is the 17%. Oh, this is the interesting stuff. 17% had this play through coach-led, conditioned small set of games. So basically your condition structure of training, whereas 70% had it with just playing with friends. If only we could get more kids outside playing with their friends. So, quick task. To you, what is an effective coach? So coaches are responsible for developing athletes' mental, physical, technical, and tactical abilities. However, society identifies coaches as great based on 2 criteria: win-loss records and media attention. Think of Derby County and Everton, 2 massive clubs in their own right, often referred to as Frank Lampard's Everton. How you can bring a club so big down to that level is disappointing, but then again, it's the media which has brought it down. Relying solely on wins and losses to identify great coaches is incredibly limited. So if you can write into the chat function, what do you think makes an effective coach? So I'm just going to give it 2 minutes. Have a think as well. Oh, I like that. What makes a good teacher? Coaches should see themselves more as technical and tactical and be teachers as well. I like that answer. Understanding the kids is incredibly important, not just as a group of kids or the age they are, but also as the individual. Perfect. Can you remind me about this question? I'll come back to it just at the very end. So we'll take questions at the very end. Good encouragement, like it. Okay, keep writing your thoughts into it as well. I'm just a bit aware of time at the same time. Yeah, feedback is important. It definitely has to be honest feedback, but with empathy, showing a bit of affection at the same time. A couple of people have shared their responses with me individually as well. So if you're not comfortable in the group, by all means, you can send them to me individually as well. It's good for me just to see what we get. Perfect. Opportunity to fail. Definitely encourage them to love the sport. Can't argue that at all. Cares about every player. Perfect. Some great answers. Excellent. Right. Just going to move on then to what was found in different studies of what does make an effective coach. So 6 different dimensions that characterize the athlete's experiences of what a great coach is. What they found is it came down to the coach's attributes, the environment, the system they used. That's a bit more of the technical, tactical side, the relationships, the care and actions and influences. They're also referred to as teachers, mentors, and friends. We have coaches in the program, which I've been a coach of in the past, and I would now consider those players friends, especially the seniors, which recently graduated. Now they've gone beyond the program. Quite often we stay in touch through text message. I'll go watch the games. They reach out to me. When Wales won the other day, I had a lot of messages from those kids who just graduated. 2 of the kids I used to coach became staff members. We sadly lost one of those coaches back in January, February time. So I think it's very important that not only can you teach and mentor the children, but if you do it right, if you can be effective, you can have long-term friends for the rest of your life. And again, like I said, in touch with a lot of them, and it's nice to see someone come into coaching with their club as well. So these are quotes which are found from athletes. They don't act like they're better than you or above you. Instead, they come down to your level and act human. He was like our rock. The key to our confidence was a steady emotional state throughout the season. Nothing worse than a coach that gets irate, shouts and screams on the sideline, and then when it doesn't go the wrong way, they sulk, walk off, don't even watch the game, or start calling kids names. That does happen. I've been in games myself where I've seen that. It's absolutely disgusting. They have a steady emotional state. It's important that the coaches also show this as well, because that will also reflect on the parents. The coaches have a duty to be able to help manage your emotions as parents as well by setting expectations and boundaries, but also explaining all this to you throughout the season. The game is about you, the player. It's not about me, the coach. When the coach is playing the game, it's all about the players, not about the coaches. That's the biggest key there. We have to make sure it's about the players, not about us, the adults, the coaches. That becomes about our ego. They gain respect out of love rather than fear. Perfect. Can't argue that at all. No coach should think that they have to put fear into players to gain respect. It goes the other way. You gain respect by getting the trust of the players, showing that you're invested in them, not just as a player, but also them as the human. Make sure you know about them, that you care for them. You don't want to have a coach who continually bangs on until you wear down. It's okay to have some negative points sometimes, but it can't always be negative. There's got to be a balance. One of the questions I get from parents quite often is the role of feedback. Feedback is important, but so is how you do it, the timing of it, the tone of it. If we only pull up kids on the mistakes, it becomes very negative. We've got to look at how we can instill a positive environment and how we portray what we need the kids to work on and how they can grow and get better. So while we do want kids to make mistakes, we want them to fail, it's important that in those moments, we don't go in and say, that wasn't very good, that's not good enough, you should do this. It's more of, okay, we didn't quite get the outcome we were looking for there. What did you feel? What did you recognize what was wrong? So you start the question, you start to ask them to engage in learning. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'd agree with you. What do you think you could do next time? You know what the answer is yourself, but you guide them through that. Far more positive because you're looking to build rather than break down. There's a lot of research in this, and what our coaches are actually going through right now is they've had to record themselves for 20 minutes, and they then have to reflect on their behaviors and emotions. Quite often as coaches, we seem to think that we're doing the right thing all the time, but when we really reflect on ourselves, we look at our own performance, at times we start to realize what our tone of our emotions really do look at. So over the summer, they've got to identify their strengths and weaknesses and give me a report on how they're going to develop that. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is our game model. Again, I'll go through this stuff quickly. This is basically what informs what it is, what we do, and what you should be seeing on the field. There is a video on our website where you can see this in action from a moment in play where we lost the ball. So we're in transition from they had the ball to we had the ball, to then it was us counterattacking, so it's to the we have the ball. And you can see all these different moments through the way we play. This is the game model which we expect to see at U19, not at U11. At the younger age groups, we expect to see more individual work. We're not looking for pretty passing patterns. We're not looking for this Barcelona type of way of playing of tiki-taka, knocking the ball around non-stop. We want to see creative, daring, adventurous players trying to beat the player 1v1, playing out for the back. We're going to concede tons of goals because we will lose the ball at the back. That's okay. What we want to see is the players have the confidence to have the ball. They want to have the ball. They're willing to try. These are the individual qualities we're looking for within the player. This is also our reference for evaluations. This is the roadmap towards more specific learning in later ages. In a winning culture, this is not possible to commit to. If our focus is on winning, we're not going to look for players to develop ball mastery in tight spaces. We want the players to get rid of it so they don't lose it. You can't develop players in a winning culture. It can't be done. No matter who tries to argue it because of what they think their belief is, if you go back again to the science, to what's been proven, you can't, because your two philosophies are not aligned. They compete against each other, and you get one is an ego-orientated environment, the other is process and player-driven. They can't work together. So for us, defining success is technical development, empowering players to be creative decision makers, developing the psychosocial support with engaging with others, and providing the psychological support to transfer into life lessons. Okay, this is what we use within evaluations. Several studies have shown that competitive success at a younger age correlates modestly at best, if not at all, with long-term senior success. That is, early success has been described as neither a necessary precondition nor a valid predictor of long-term success. A recent review highlighted that the participation patterns that likely lead to youth success are not the same as those that facilitate long-term development and adult success. What that is saying is, if you're more focused on the level you play at, the bracket you play at, the tournament you play in, the acronym of the league you play in at such a young age group, your child isn't going to get very far. It's very ego-orientated, which we just touched upon. They're going to burn out. Most players that actually make it in sports are late developers, not the early developers through the genetic makeup. We keep hammering this as much as we can, but again, and we'll find that every year we come to evaluations, I've been selected for NPL. Okay, that means absolutely nothing. It really does. All it means is you have a team playing in a certain league. It doesn't mean that you are going to develop at a rate which is going to keep you there when you're older. Or I play in a bronze bracket, I need to be in a high bracket. No, the bracket is irrelevant to us. You need to be in an environment which is going to challenge and support you. But again, because of the way the structured in the youth soccer program, with more and more leagues, with the advert which I showed you earlier, it's really working against what's best for players. Ultimately, it comes down to money. The more kids you get in a program, the higher you can see that kid is, the more they can charge you, the more then these clubs are making. It's horrible. Okay, moving on to logistics and expectations. And again, we'll work through this pretty quickly. So the player expectations, we kind of touched those on what our values are, but it is important that everyone wears the training jersey. And if you are going to wear a hoodie or a jacket, we do ask this one of the Fremont provided uniforms. Every player must bring a ball with them to practice. We focused heavily on individual training. If it's not individual, small study games, we don't want kids running around most of the time trying to get a ball. Everything within the curriculum is time-based as well to get about those physiological conditions. Practice with respect to others. Games, be there 45 minutes before kickoff. We only have a 30-minute warm-up. There's no need for any more, but at least we can make sure that we have everyone there available. You can find the actual field at the location. Some people get lost, so please arrive 45 minutes before kickoff. Also gives the kids a bit of a social time as well. Always show respect to opponents and referees. We do not want to hear any disrespect towards opponents. They are our guests when they come to our fields. Treat them like you would treat someone coming into your own home. So be courteous, be polite. How other people behave, that is up to them. We don't lower our bar. We always expect others to raise their bar to meet us at ours. Same as when we go away. If we're not welcomed warmly, we can still show respect and we can still show ourselves in a better example than everyone else. That goes for every single club member, and also show respect to the referees. There is a massive issues with the referees right now. Numbers are down throughout the country, not just in Fremont. What we're now finding is referees are demanding more. It's getting to a point where we're looking at $200 a game just to get a full crew of referees. So now you start to find the finances, the money is going out of the game, it's going into referees. It's incredible the cost of referees right now. And obviously referees then will deviate to where more money can be made. Can't fault them, I understand that, because they get abused at the same time. Why get abused for lower money if you can get abused for more money? It's up to us to give a more positive environment for those referees, so it's not just based around where they're going to get paid more, but they feel safe, secure. We have to remember these referees are also developing at the same time. Our expectations of appearance, we kind of touched on those just then as well. Please utilize Team Snap. It helps us as coaches plan and organize. Your schedules are going to be up there. We do expect players to be at games. We're very, very flexible with practice. If you miss a practice, it's not the end of the world. Please don't miss practices for kids' parties, families, events. We've got to be realistic. We're not training for the World Cup. And a big one, which always seems to fall on deaf ears, keep the parking lot safe. That is up to us, the parents. Pull into a parking bay, make sure your child can get out safely, straight onto the pavement, not jumping out while you're on the road. It causes backlogs. We do share facilities with other sports or other people throughout the community of Fremont. They will get frustrated, they will overtake. A kid is going to get hurt. How we struggle as the parents of these kids to pull into a parking bay is beyond me. Your kid is not going to be exhausted walking an extra 50 yards if you've got to park a little bit further away. They're about to go out and run and play anyway. Let them walk a bit further. It's going to be their warm-up. Something I do every single morning with my stepkid, I actually park a quarter of a mile away from his school and make him walk the rest of the way, even if he's late, unless it's my fault why he's late. If he's late because he didn't make his bed, got up late, then he has to suffer those consequences. He needs to run to school. Otherwise, we get him there on time and he's got to walk. It makes him put effort into getting there. It sets him into more of an open mind, bit of a growth mindset of putting that effort into why he's getting there and the importance of getting to school in the first place. That's just me. Maybe I'm a bad parent. Okay, uniforms. These are our uniforms to give you a bit of a visual idea before you get into my uniform. You can see this. Up at the top is the full home kit, so the dark top, dark shorts, and the light blue socks. The away kit is the light top with the dark shorts and the white socks. Our training kit then is the home shorts. Don't worry too much about the socks, either one. And the gray training top at the same time as well. Gray training top never expires. If you wore that for 4 years, brilliant. Buy it to fit for the next 4 years if you want. If it changes design, because Adidas will expire the uniforms, if it changes design, color, anything, as long as it's a training top, we really don't mind. The training top helps us with safety, knowing the kids are with us, they're within the program. It also puts the kids into a mindset of being something bigger than just themselves and just a team. They're part of a club at the same time. It also means they're wearing appropriate clothing for sport. Believe it or not, in the past, we have seen kids show up in all kinds of different tops, buttoned up shirts, all sorts. This can be purchased through My Uniform, and you will get this link as soon as you're registered. The uniform is good until 2024. We did get an extension because of the issues we had through COVID with the supply chain. So we did get an additional 12 months added to that. So it's good through till the summer of 2024. Schedules, it's a 44-week training plan. We have an open training policy as well, which means if you miss a session, you can attend another team's training session because you follow the same curriculum. Just let us know and we can direct you to the most appropriate team to train with. Depending on the program, you're either having 2 or 3 sessions a week. So foundation teams in the training pool, you're twice a week. Select teams, SE, you're twice a week. Foundation phase teams in U9 to U9 and U10, you're 3 times. Same for ID teams throughout the entire program, you're 3 sessions a week. We're working on the schedule right now with the coaches as we get your registrations in. So there's no confirmed schedule yet until we confirm all the teams. We may need to add teams if we get more demand over the summer as people move into Fremont. It might be we have to put teams together if fewer people register than what they've already committed to. So we will be putting that out in good time before the season starts. When it comes to the game schedules, these are controlled by NorCal Premier. Our opponents, they have final decision on the times. We won't know the opponents nor the time and date of these games until usually 1 to 2 weeks before the start of the season. Again, that is out of our control. What the home coaches do have, though, is they have first option on home games. They have a bit more control. But what we do try to do is work with every team to find a game time and date that's going to work for everyone. Our purpose isn't to gain an advantage because the other team can't make it or fewer teams are going to make it. We want to get as many kids playing every single week as we can. What we can confirm early on, we want to keep these consistent, is Thursday sessions. We're now going to move the Wednesday training pool, if you're in that program before and you're still in it, over to the Thursday. The reason being we have an entire club program over at Irvington Community Park. We want those younger kids to feel like they're a part of the bigger program. They're not just our U7, U8s who come in and go early in the training day, but they actually get to see the bigger kids coming in and practice around those slightly older kids as well. So that is always going to be the same on the Thursday. Mondays are going to stay the same. So training pool for U7s and U8s, that first time slot 4:30 to 5:50, that's never going to change. That's always going to be the same. And if you're put into one of our training pools in the older age groups, you'll have training at the same time also. Our senior team is now going to be going Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's best to support because of their age recovery. They still sadly have 2 game days on the weekends, completely detrimental to physical well-being. So we've moved the Monday session, which is always for us has been a recovery session, to the Tuesday. We'll be providing those senior players, and this also goes through any second teams at U19, with a recovery program to do at home. So we can focus Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the periodized physical training and also technical and tactical. So we can get a bit more out of the limited time we have with them at that U19 age group. We have goalkeeper practice. This will be the training for you. So for the youth, 2014 to 2011, the foundations, you'll be 4:30 to 5:50 p.m. on the Thursdays. So you can choose whether you want to play small side games or go to goalkeeper practice. Also same within this development years, the 2010 to 07 age group. And what we have is goalkeeper training will be within your training and team environment. So having developed your technical skills in the younger age groups, you're now going to get the tactical benefit within your own age groups by doing tactical work on those Thursday sessions. And also within those Wednesday sessions, we're doing more of a big game. Okay, fees. Our fees, some people have asked, our fees gone up? It may look like they've gone up because you've moved from training pool or the SE into ID. The reason that goes up is because ID do have more training days within the week. How the fees work is this: we first collect your registration fee. It's not a deposit, it's a registration fee. That is for the entire season. You only pay for that once in a season. And the season to us is from July through to June. That is due in the month of June. That's going to allow us to know what we're working with going into the new season. We have to apply for different competitions. We have to also provide staff with the teams they're going to be coaching. We also need to put together the practice schedule. It also helps you as parents because they will expire in May when the installments kick in for the training fees, so you don't end up double paying in any month when you go from the previous season into the new season. The installments could be your training fees, so it's 126 for training pool, 166 for your ID. These installments are withdrawn monthly. This is a monthly schedule, but these are not aligned to our season calendar. So each 4-week training cycle is assigned to one installment. So not every single month is going to be a perfect 4 weeks. So what you find is your first installment is assigned to week 1 to 4. Your second installment is from week 5 to week 8. So these don't perfectly align with a month. So when we get into December, when we have 3 weeks off for the winter, you will still be paying in December the regular fee, but you're not paying for those 3 weeks off. Okay, you're not being charged for those 3 weeks. These installments are assigned per training week. If for some reason you have to leave, you move out of the city, when you come to cancelling, I work with you to find the training weeks you're involved in, so you don't overpay for anything. You only pay for active training weeks you were in. So even if we come to January, you've moved through the winter, but you've paid an additional month because you moved out of state, for example, but we had those 3 weeks off, that does get refunded to you. That is all clear within the forms when you sign up, and you've got to read and agree to. If you do cancel early, there is one installment penalty for early cancellation. The reason being, our financial commitments are based on who registers. If we find people move out of town, for example, is hit one, my 2006s who I used to coach, we've gone through 3 full teams of kids moving out of town. Still, like I mentioned before, keep in touch with them. Good to hear they're doing well. Most of them are in Georgia or Texas or Arizona. The reason we have the one installment penalty is we do have to be committed to our fees for 12 months. But we don't believe it's right that if you sign up in July of this year, that you should be having to pay in June of next year. If for some reason a life change came about in October, for example, or it could be August, yeah, you shouldn't have to pay for the full season. There are programs which will ask you to commit to the full season financially, or pay fully up front, or we'll divide it into 2 installments, fall and spring. I don't believe we should be tying parents into those kind of financial, it's not a contract, but agreements, because we don't know what's going to happen from 1 week to the next. But there is a one-time installment penalty. And that is, if you participate in 16 weeks, you pay your registration fee, 4 installments for those training fees. So 1 installment per 4 weeks of training, aligned to our training plan, and 1 additional fee then for early cancellation, and nothing beyond that. We're trying to make it as flexible as possible for all participants. We do have a financial aid program as well. I haven't updated at the bottom, but 2019-20, even as we went into those COVID years, we still awarded over $70,000 in financial aid. That financial aid, we don't hand you a check. What we do is we work with you on the fees. So if you can afford a certain fee, we'll work with you, and that is what you pay. It is largely based on household income, but we're also aware of the different challenges of the Bay Area. So personal situations will come into consideration at the same time as well. We do need to make sure that we're able to financially sustain the program while keeping it as one of the cheapest programs in the area. But again, we're here to support you as best as we can. Not only that, throughout the year, we do our best to give back to the community as well. As I mentioned, we donate to certain foundations. We also sadly lost a player in 2021. You've likely seen this from the news, so we donate to his foundation quite frequently, so we can continue to support his family and also the foundation they've put into place through that sad loss. We also give to the food banks within Fremont. We also try and provide financial donations to the high school teams. They have very limited budgets. When players ask us to support, we try to support where we can. Obviously, we have a lot of players. We can't support everyone, but we try our best when we can. And also those kids that have graduated, we also try and support those at the same time, continuing their efforts to play soccer in college. We also, if you graduate high school and you've been with us for the 2 years leading up to graduation, those kids will play free. So the graduating seniors of this year, if they're still in the area, but they graduated high school and they played with us for a minimum of 2 years, we waive their fees and we award them that financial aid so they can keep playing, so they can save to get their life going beyond the high school years. Those are just a few examples of how we try to give back. So just to kind of round up, there is a lot of information there, and this is hopefully going to kind of condense it. Registration links have been sent and will be resent as well. Program fees are due by June the 30th. Millette is our registrar. She will be receiving your information and she'll send you the welcome email. If you have already registered, we won't be updating anything until the current season is finished, so not to confuse people about the teams and schedules. So as soon as we break at the end of, I believe it's next week, isn't it? We will start to transfer everyone over to the new season teams. Then you'll be getting your welcome email from Millette. Upon that, you'll be getting your invite to register through Got Soccer. Millette will support you through that. For those returning, very little to do there, but there has been a few changes, but we hope nothing additional for you guys to do. You'll also get your link to uniform, so order uniform as soon as possible. Practice starts on July the 26th, that is a Tuesday. On July the 25th, we have Frans Hoek. He's the current assistant coach for the Netherlands. I get on with him quite well. I've been on a few trips with him. He's been to the club in the past. I don't particularly like him today after he scored last minute against Wales. But he is coming to the club once again to do a bit of coach education with everyone. So can't wait for that. We've got the absolute elite working with our coaches. First game is tentative for August 20th. I say tentative because that relies on NorCal Premier. They have published their calendar, but quite often it is delayed or something comes up. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. And we try as a club, if we do get games scheduled on August 20th, to push them beyond Labor Day as well. We know a lot of people are still out of town. Summer doesn't end until Labor Day. So we try and postpone as best we can as well to give everyone a bit of a break, give a chance to get back. We will provide future workshops and presentations throughout the season. We will be sharing this one also. It has been recorded. And we hope that you do continue to engage in these to help support your child's development and the operations of the club. So just to finish on, I think this is an important message. Why is it that we're here? Why did you choose to log in and check out the club? Parent behavior construed as negative, coercive, always communicating excessive evaluative concerns. That there should also include coaches, but the research was done on parents. So basically the adults in the game. So those who contribute to an ego-orientated style, this has been shown to contribute to a more threatening sport performance environment. Such behaviors are frequently part of the win at all costs mentality that increases stress and reduces enjoyment in youth sport. Research has also found that parental pressure, which is related to an ego-oriented climate, has been linked to higher performance anxiety and negative effect in youth athletes. This is all based on science and research, and it continues in even more modern research to show the same trends. The research surrounding this topic has been consistent in establishing the important influence